Here we are in Sacramento on March 14th, 2012, and it's raining outside. Nothing strange about that for March 14th. It's pretty normal this time of the year for rain. What isn't normal are the rising temperatures over time. Now, let me tell you that I'm picking up where I left off yesterday when I did a video about how there isn't much on Google about the history of Sacramento type things, like the history of Sacramento weather. For some reason, this information is buried or suppressed, or no one cares, or whatever. Not many people have written articles about this or done interviews about this. So I thought I would just break the mold and just start talking about it. The history of Sacramento weather. Someone needs to talk about it. Okay. Now, when you go to normal weather websites, say like weather.com or the National Weather Service, they do not give you the data on the 70s or the 80s. So you have to kind of look around for that. And I found that almanac.com, which is the old Farmer's Almanac, has that data. So again, we have to turn to a national source to get local information. That's actually the real theme of this video. Okay, I'm just startled that local media hasn't even addressed this. Sacramento weather history. Okay, what I did, I took almanac.com, I took every year from 73 until 2012 and basically plotted it out on this chart, all the highs and lows and mean average temperatures for March 14th each year. Okay? So for March 14th, throughout the entire 70s, let's just say 73 through 79, because I don't have data prior to 73. Throughout 73 through 79, the highest low temperature for March 14th was 49 degrees, but that was an anomaly. Other than that, we had temperatures in the 30s and low to mid 40s. Okay, in the 80s, the highest low temperature for March 14th was 51 degrees. In the 90s, the highest low temperature for March 14th was 53 degrees. Are you seeing a pattern? From 2000 through 2012, the highest low temperature for March 14th was 55 degrees, and that was in 2011. Incrementally, over time, we're seeing small increases, decade by decade. So if you can imagine low temperatures rising every decade a couple degrees, eventually after 50 decades, or let's just say after 5 decades, we might start to notice the problem. It might start to become more irritating. Now for this date, for high temperatures, let's look at high highs. The highest high of the 70s was 72 degrees for this date. That's 73 through 79. In the 80s, the highest temperature for March 14th was 70 degrees. Kind of fell back a little there. In the 90s, the highest temperature for March 14th was 75 degrees. In the 2000s, the highest temperature for March 14th was 80 degrees. And that's 2000 through now, and that happened in 2007. Over time, we're starting to see these little upticks, okay, decade by decade, higher temperatures. Now, some call that global warming. I think that's become an outdated term. I think climate change is the more accurate description of what's going on. And we're seeing just more extremes than in the past. I'm not saying we're headed for a catastrophe. That's not the conclusion of this at all. The conclusion is that Sacramento has buried its head in the sand. Sacramento people have, just because Sacramento media hasn't told them what's going on. So, and it's not really the media's job to tell us everything, but I would think it's their job to tell us the most important things. And if climate really is changing, let's talk about it. Let's not jump to conclusions. Let's open the discussion and talk about it and look at more data and just find out as the more data we look at, you know, what kind of changes are happening. This goes back to what I said yesterday, that if we look back on history and collect facts and then use our imagination to find solutions, we're in a better situation than just ignoring all of this.